I feel like now we're all at this certain point of our lives, at a certain epidemic with fighting the war that's inside of our mind. And at times we don't necessarily know how to combat it or beat it. So that way we can continue to flourish in what God wants us to do and what God wants us to be. And here's how to do that. I feel like the main problem we all have is not recognizing that we have to be connected to a source, a righteous source, that helps us to be able to do the things that we want to do, that we need to do, and that we have to do in order to provide that good light in this world to make the world a better place. And the first thing you have to be connected to is God. In terms of being connected to God, there's a lot of religions, a lot of lifestyles that people practice. So if you're watching this video and you practice a certain religion, look, we're all striving to get towards the same thing. So as long as you have righteousness and you have good intent by what you pray, the prayers will get answered. We have to understand that God wants to bless us and we can't act like he doesn't. But when we don't go talk to him, then it becomes an issue. We then start putting things alongside him as if that's an equal or greater God than him. And we don't do it, intentionally. We do it not knowing, but doing it not knowing is still a sin, and God will repeatedly push you through that certain circumstance or that certain trial until you figure out what it is. So yes, we have to go speak to God and communicate all of our problems with him, because speaking to God, that is our launching pad for success. We have this thing where we feel like, we can't necessarily talk to people or even talk to our friends, our friends and family. It gets like that to a certain point, to where you feel like all you have is yourself. And even a problem within that is, of course, you have to be careful who you speak and who you talk to, but you have to also recognize that hiding a testimony is a sin. If you're hiding a testimony, you're stopping the process of not only yourself, but you're stopping the process of somebody else who needs that help as well. So you have to be considerate in that, in granting yourself that love. And you have to recognize that your experiences that you go through is what makes you you. If you hide it, you're not helping the other person that's around you. We have to come into the point of realizing that not everything is about us. Yes, we do play a part in it, but we have to recognize everything we do is for the greater good. Because if we all unite and come under the same amount of righteousness and the same amount of thinking that includes bringing about world peace, a better thing for everybody that helps everybody eat, then we go on the right path. We have this thing where we focus too much on the negative. You can't focus too much on the negative. There's a difference between being real with yourself and being patient with yourself. Me personally, I have a serious case of not being patient with myself. And it causes me to spiral sometimes, to the point where I feel like, damn, I can't accomplish this goal, or I can't accomplish that. Like, it literally shuts my brain off, and I don't have that certain spirit or certain, drive or determination and motivation that helps me get things done. So you have to realize that where you're at is where you're supposed to be, in the position that God is preparing you for. You have to constantly prepare yourself while he works. You have to have that faith and that patience in him, so that way you can get to that next level that you're supposed to be. Learn to be patient with yourself. It's okay. You're going to make errors. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to fail. But you have to embrace that and focus on the positive in it. Okay, well, why did I fail? Oh, it's because I didn't do this. Oh, it's because I did that. You know what I mean? You have to break it down and find the positives in between that and be happy about it. We tend to get angry, once we find something wrong with ourselves, when we should be happy. And the reason why you should be happy when you find that error within yourself is because you have a sense of correction now. You have a sense of where to go and how to abide in correcting it. And that's what's going to make you stand out from everything. And that's what's going to help make you flourish. When you have a plan, it simplifies everything in its entirety. It makes you realize, damn, okay, this is something that I love to do that gets me through certain parts of the day. This is something that disconnects me from what I love to do that helps me not get through certain parts of the day, while being productive. So it's about creating that plan that you know and love that involves the best part of your brain, which is, yourself and your heart. You have to have a good heart while doing it. If it's not aligned up with God and what he wants us all to do, then it's not going to go the way you think it is. We see a lot of people who, these celebrities, and we see a lot of, influencers who have all this money, right? And, having money, it's a good thing. But the person who has the money, that's where it comes in. Money can be either a good thing or a bad thing. It's no in between. It can either be good or bad. It depends on how you use it. And I feel like the reason why there's a disconnect or a decline in our growth in terms of that, because everybody wants to have money. You need money, especially in this economy. You need money. But the reason why we all don't have it, the reason why I don't have it, I'm struggling right with y'all. But the reason why we all don't have it is because there's a spiritual and mental disconnect with God. You have to realize that these things are what helps you get to the next step. Think of like a staircase. Okay, first step, boom. You get on 1, get on 2, get on 3, get on 4, get on 5, and so on and so forth. There's only so many steps you can take, but there can also be a larger amount. Think of like when you go up of you're in a big building, a skyscraper or something like that. There's times where, you see it in parking lots. They have all those staircases. It's a whole bunch of stairs because there's certain floors, and it makes you think. It makes me think about when you go into certain corporations and you see these certain floors. They say, oh, this floor is for the people who so-and-so who haven't gotten to this floor yet, or this floor, or this floor. There's certain levels that we have to get through with our spiritual and mental awareness with God. And once we do that, once we take the time to actually rejoice in that constant building of our brain and our mind, we end up finding what we're supposed to be doing. And it's a blessing, man. It's a blessing. When you realize that God is at everything that you do and he's constantly there, you go to realize that everything is not going to be how you always, it's not going to always be how you want it to be. It's going to always be how God sees fit and how God wants it to be, So I just feel like it's important to embrace the journey and embrace the mistakes that you make along that journey, because that's what's going to help you fight that war that's inside of your mind, that war that constantly makes you feel like you're less, that constantly makes you feel like you're not doing enough, that constantly makes you feel like you don't know who you are. And I'm here to tell you, in reality, who we are is right in front of us. We all have God inside of us, and it's up to us to channel that God is inside of us in order for us to grow and shape ourselves into the human beings that God wants us and needs us to be. If you don't ask for help and you have that ego that's trapped, and you have that ego that lets you fall in that certain way, that's a dangerous game to play. It's very dangerous. I speak from experience. I have a testimony in regards to that. My ego, it gets into a lot of things. It gets in the way of a lot of things that I love to do, and I don't end up asking for it, and I end up suffering more and more when I could have just asked my brother or a friend or my sister or my mom or, anybody that I'm connected to. I could have just asked them for help. God asks for help. He doesn't need to ask, but he does. Why? Because he knows the task at hand, and if he needs help, who's to say that we don't need help? So that's something to think about. In regards to that, I appreciate everyone who's been supporting me on this channel, on all the shorts, all the videos. I appreciate all the love. And, I love connecting with you all. I see all the comments, the the thoughts. You know, some of y'all vent to me on there, and I like that. You know, I like connecting with people and conversing, and you know, creating that environment to where we all can come and discuss things that will not only make us better people, but that will make the world a better place. You know, because we all have to plant certain seeds, and the seeds that we have to plant, they have to grow into fruition, a good fruition, a righteousness. You know, it has to grow into a righteous fruition. So with that being said, I appreciate all the love. Once again, I love you all. And Q Talks, we are out. Peace.